Narcissism and Gaslighting. Leave the kids alone. Hi, for those new to the channel, Corey Rennie, unemployed counselor. We're going to talk today about something that I'm hearing from a lot of folks. I'm getting a lot of messages regarding it, and that's narcissism and gaslighting. Okay? Now you're going to say, but unemployable counselor, I'm awesome. Why do you want to talk about narcissism? So I'll tell you why. Because it's not the narcissist or it's not those gaslighting, it's who it impacts, is what I'm looking at. Okay? And oftentimes those could be coworkers, could be friends, family, or it could be kids. Now I want to talk a little bit today about that and about how sometimes in the quest to get to our goal, we sometimes will do things that might not necessarily be positive or end up being hurtful to other people and don't recognize it. Okay? And I'm going to start with that okay, so narcissists are basically, right, if you have a high opinion of yourself, so be it. There's some situations where it's all about you all the time. Doesn't matter what it is, it has to be about you. Okay? Now, same with gaslighting, you're telling a narrative to fit your story and not, doesn't matter if it's true or not, you just need people to believe your side and not something else. Okay? Really simplistic terms, but that's how I kind of look at it. So we have individuals, and I should point out narcissism is a mental health disorder, but I'm not getting into that. I'm just going to talk about the actions of that and how it can impact those around you, especially kids. Okay? So a lot of times you'll see in situations where if it's coworkers, right, there'll be fights there, or relationships, which is usually where stuff like this really comes out. Now we've all had relationships that have been good. Maybe they've ended amicably, or maybe they haven't. And there's this divide, right? And there's like a he said, she said, or he said, or she said, whatever the case the relationship is. There's always that kind of chasm between what we need and what we're getting. Now, a lot of times, I think it's about a narrative, okay? Especially in like divorce, things like that. Because there's usually he said, she said. Anyone who's been through that knows your friends all of a sudden seem to split. Some people might take one side, some people take the other. I don't believe in the sides thing personally, because live your life, okay?
But there's a lot of situations where people will try to ally build or create a narrative to fit their view of things, and sometimes that view isn't accurate or honest, and then the other person is left to defend that. Now it's kind of like if I'm on top of a hill and there's a little village below, and I push a big boulder down, and that boulder rolls down and crushes half the town, right? All I did was set the ball in motion, right? Everybody else is responsible for getting to safety and cleaning up the mess afterwards. That's what this is. It's easy to sit in the dark and point fingers and say things, but it's another thing to actually have to prove it, or to actually have to come out and be like, okay, this is what it is. And that goes into the whole mind game aspect of that. And I'll make it clear. There's a lot of key signs. Like number one, I always look at isolation, right? Let's say you're in a relationship with someone and all of a sudden they have reasons not to like all your friends, and they have reasons why you shouldn't be liking your friends. Also, all of a sudden your friends drop, right? They start kind of questioning every decision you make and need to be a part of every decision you make, to the point where you're dependent on that person to make those decisions, building dependency, right? You got that. And then you have where they need to be happy and they need to be right and they need to be honored at all costs, even if it means you or your dignity. Eggshells walk, right? Eggshell walk. So basically, you need to walk and be super careful not to upset them because you need to make sure they're happy, right? You start sacrificing your own needs for that person. Okay, you see where I'm going with that? Okay, so then all of a sudden, you as an individual aren't really you as an individual anymore. You're part of something else. You're not driving the bus. You're just sitting in it. And you have to make damn sure that bus driver is happy, or it's going to be a very unpleasant trip. Or all of a sudden you go to do a task, and it's like, it's one thing to ask someone, hey, do you know how to do that? Do you know what you're doing? That's one thing. But it's another thing to kind of be on them about it, and to the point you have to take over because they can't do this, right? All of a sudden you're ineffectual. It's not working. Oh, you don't know how to do this, you're stupid. Or, oh, right? And then you start getting the self-doubt, and you start believing that narrative, and then you get a leader-follower, right? How do you, it's kind of similar to how cults work when you think about it. But that narcissism behavior, that unhealthiness of a relationship, like if you're in a relationship and it's like that, and you step back and look at it, is that the relationship you always envisioned yourself being in? Is it a matter of, oh, I love this person so much, no matter what they do, I'm going to have to support them because I can't lose them because they're everything to me, right? It's a different narrative than, hey, we're two people dating, we have our own lives, we do our own thing, when we get together, it's magical, right? Big difference there. You're doing everything you can to please someone. That doesn't end well, because they're always going to want more, and they're always going to be looking for something else, and then when it's time for them to leave, you're screwed. They're just going to go and leave. They'll probably take everything they can and go. Okay? Now throw kids into that mix. You have kids with that person. Relationships end. You grow as a person, right? All of a sudden you're on opposite ends of the spectrum. What happens? All of a sudden it's like, I've talked to some friends of mine in the last few months where they've gone through some pretty awful experiences. And it's like all of a sudden you're, all of a sudden, nope, sorry. Can't contact that person. Or all of a sudden, if they're young, it's all of a sudden, oh no, sorry, their phone's grounded, can't have it, right? Or like things like that. They start limiting how they can communicate with the other person or the other parent or whatever, right? They're controlling that, which is the key, because power and control is big. They need to set the narrative. They need to make sure they look good, and they need to make sure everyone else looks bad, because they have that need to be carried around and honored and celebrated. And if they're not, then there's hell to pay, because you're not respecting me. Look what I do for you. Look what I've done. Look what I've done, and you, look how you treat me, right? They work on your fears, they work on your insecurities, and they plant seeds and watch it grow. And there's always compromise in any relationship, but the key word is compromise, and that's a two-way street. If you're the one doing all the bending, then you're eventually going to break, and they're going to move on and pick someone else and do it. And then the kids are young enough where it's almost like you can start molding them from scratch, where it's like, no, I'm the ultimate authority. I let you do this, right? It's like, there's a court order. Doesn't matter. I'm letting you do this. Remember that. Remember that I let you go. I do this. I'm letting you, right? They're the power. They have control. That's how that works. And it's an unfortunate situation for people to be in, because not everyone is like that, clearly. But if you're not working on the best interest for the kids, and you're not, more importantly, if there's struggles and issues for you, get help, okay? Because oftentimes in stuff, like with coworkers, who gives a shit what you do when you leave here, right? I don't care what this guy does. He can be an asshole in his own time. But when you're working there and you're working with them, you expect certain things. There's a give and take. Relationships are different like that, where we're in there maybe by choice at the beginning, but over time it gets to be molded and melded into something that it probably isn't. And then it gets to be a power dynamic. Go to the Raider game with you tonight? Well, I gotta ask my wife, or I gotta ask my husband. Oh, I don't know, he's not gonna like that, or she's not gonna like that, right? So it's like, hey, I'm going to the game with Ted, right? Like I said, there's compromises. Like, oh, do we have plans? That's, Curtis, hey, do you have plans? Does the narcissist or does the other person ask you if they have plans, or they just make plans and do it? Oh, I'm doing this today. And then you're sad because you're all by yourself because you don't have them in your life for that day. See what I mean? There's a different sort of narrative and an ebb and a flow to this that people don't realize. And when you're in it, you don't see it. You don't see it. You may have like, oh man, I don't like, you might be stressed all the time, full of self-doubt, unable to make a decision without their input, right? It's basically like over time, they're chipping away at your resolve to the point where you find yourself in a position where I can't shit unless I ask them permission to. Okay? That's how I look at it. And then the gaslighting piece is, they might have a narrative about you as a person that's not true, but it makes them look good and you look horrible, because that's, again, goes back to that shift of balance. If you're not there for them to feel the accolades and to be carried around like it's a Jewish wedding, right? Yay! Right? Whenever they make a decision or they decide something, then there's a void there for them. So that kind of gets filled up by, all of a sudden, oh, you know what this guy did? Oh, it's horrible. You know what she did? Oh, this is horrible. I can't believe they did this, right? But it didn't happen. It's their narrative. Or they'll try to, I always go back to ally building, but even like, especially with kids. Kids are young, they're malleable, and they're impressionable. And when they get their hooks in and they start telling them things that aren't true, how does that unfold with them? And then if you're the other person or whatever the case may be, and you have to explain to them, look, this isn't the case, that's hard too, because no one should have to have those conversations with their kid. Let them be kids, right? You want to see if they, like, the only one hurting there is the kid, and it makes it a hard situation, right? So if there's kids involved, and I said this in another video, if there's kids involved, let them be kids. Grow up. Don't do that stuff with kids. You got a problem with someone else, then deal with that person. But to try to poison the well for a community that you're pissed off at is counterproductive. Because at some point, people are going to wake up and be like, fuck you, man. We're not doing this. Okay? So, I think that's where people get lost. That's where the gaslighting comes in. It's like, oh my gosh, they're the hero, they're the victim. They're the smartest person in the world. I can't believe everything I've ever done, right? It wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. Okay? You got to check that shit. Because it's hurtful. Not just to the coworker or the other person, but I'm looking at it from a kid's perspective. Kids are young. They're going through enough of their changes. And being a kid is hard enough in the world these days. With you watch the news or you see what happens in schools, all that kind of stuff. They don't need to think that. And for people that they're supposed to be trust and love, to have that happen is a tragedy. Like, it's horrific. I have no respect for people that do that, especially to kids, because that's one of the coldest things you can do to a kid. There's enough scary things in the world. They shouldn't have to be scared or fearful or thinking that they have to be subservient or I have to make you happy or anything like that. They're just got to be kids. Let them be kids. You make yourself happy. You don't find it in anyone else. Okay? And if you're that angry and mad and if you're feeling that way, then go see a therapist. Don't tell your kids stories, right? That's just not okay. I think people forget about those things because it gets to be all about them. Even then, it's not about the kids. It's not about the workers. It's not about their friends. It's about them, right? They need that more above all else. Yeah. I know. And then, you got the gaslighting aspect where it's like they have this narrative that they put out there that they probably believe it, even if it's not true, because they're willing to commit to that narrative. They're going to commit to it and they're going to make sure everyone knows about it, even if it's the most outlandish things. That's one thing I know from talking to a lot of people and even some experiences I've had. is that at the end of the day, you can't reason with those individuals. And I know in conversations I've had, is like, wait, well, how do you handle that? You just got to be upfront and honest, and you have to address things as they come up, as hard as that may be. You can't reason with individuals in that mindset, because even then it's going to be, you're attacking me because of this, right? Or look how awful this is, you know. Or if they want something and they don't get it, then you're even more vilified, right? And then they try to maybe uh, extend control over things they can't control, and that's part of the deal. There's a power and control issue with this, right? If they have control and they can have the narrative and everyone's looking to them, then they're okay. But the minute they don't have that stroke anymore, it falls apart. And that's the real issue, I think, in the situation. Is I have no doubt a lot of things, there's probably some bad things that happen to those individuals, but I also think that they're not dealing with it either. Okay? CM Punk said something really profound, and that was, hurt people hurt people. And I believe that to be true. If you're not going to work on yourself to get better, not only for you, but even your work environment, but especially for your kids, then what's the point? The idea is for our kids to be better than us. I've always thought that, right? We're always like this, like, hey, we're all pretty awesome, but our kids are going to be even better, because that's the way it's supposed to work. Okay? We encourage them, we support them, we love them, we do all those things. And a lot of kids don't get that, and that's the real fucking tragedy in this world. There's a lot of kids out there that don't have that. And then you look at all the social issues we have, I think a lot of it stems from environment, there's trauma, there's mental health, there's addictions, there's all those sorts of things that factor in. But I think at the end of the day, if you're acting in your own best interest above all else, then you're always going to have the same issues, because you're blind to everything else. And the people that you're trying so desperately to get to follow you and revere you are not. Actions speak louder than words, and people don't forget, especially kids. So look, like I said, I'm a counselor, not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I don't diagnose anything. I'm just kind of pointing out what I've seen from conversations and, yeah, some experiences. So I mean, like, at the end of the day, you need to realize that it's not about you. And I know too, like, at the spot I'm in now, I'm a lot happier than I've been in a long time. I'm not maybe as rich, but I'm a lot happier, right? And I'm doing shit like this because I think there's a reason for that. And I mean, it's just like, there's a lot of people, I think, that struggle and maybe don't know how to go, or maybe don't have the support systems. So instead, the ones they do have, they want to make sure that they're loyal to them, so they isolate, right? Isolate, exploit their self-doubt and insecurities, right? And then ultimately cultivate a loyal follower that's never going to leave them or do whatever they say, because it's a power and control issue. They feel good knowing that I have this power over you, or, oh, you're going to do this, or I'm going to tell you, right? Or even it's like, when you go to school, you're not allowed to drink out of that water fountain. What if a kid's thirsty? So you can't drink out of the water fountain? Like what power is that? You know what I mean? Or, no, you're not, when you go to school today, you can't talk to your teacher. No, I don't like your teacher. I didn't like what they said to me at the parent teacher interview, so can't talk to that teacher anymore, right? So the kid's going to class and his parent is saying you can't talk to the teacher. Like, stuff like that. That stuff happens, right? So then it becomes what? Children's loyalty is now in question because they don't want me to do this, right? Or it's like they're trying to block avenues for people that might tell them something different than what they're saying. And that's the issue. I'm going to let you go to school today, right? Oh my gosh, I better be good, or mom or dad will make me stay home, or, no. Okay? So look, think of the kids. step outside yourself and look at the situation. If you don't like where you are or who you are or what's going on, you can change it. But you don't do that by browbeating other people and trying to fit them into a narrative that only you want. Because it's not doing what you think. People aren't looking and saying, wow, is that person ever heroic? Oh my gosh, oh, like, it's not like that. There's a need there that needs to be filled. And you're doing it the wrong way. And you're hurting people for your own amusement, for your own feelings, for your own self-gratification. That's what it is. And I mean, I've seen a lot of relationships die. I've seen a lot of, children suffer. I've seen a lot of things like that happen because of that. 20 years of mental health and addictions, man. You see all kinds. Right? Yeah, so this is more of a conversational video today. Oh man, I hate the term TED Talks. But I mean, like, this is something that I've been thinking about for a while. And I mean, I think all of us can kind of look back and say, okay, I've been in situations where this happened, right? It's like the clowns at work who run around saying, oh, I'm this, right? What would it be? You know what I mean? Just stupidity. And it's like, if you have to run around labeling yourself as something to feel a bump up, you need to look at that, right? It's like, I'm a psychological marvel. Look at me. It's like, no, you're an asshole, right? And you're scared, and you're full of fear. So you're gonna use what manipulation skills you have to get what you want. That's how that works. Okay? So look, at the end of the day, all you can do is be yourself. And I've said that before. Try to live a good life. Get over it. Okay? Life is too short. And if you got stuff bothering you from your past, go see a counselor. Seeing a counselor or therapist isn't a weakness. It takes a lot of strength to walk through those doors. Same with addiction, anything like that. For the person to make the choice to go get help, that's one of the bravest things anyone can do. You want to be applauded for something? Be applauded for the right things, right? Don't browbeat someone, especially kids, into worshiping someone that is just a hollow shell. Because that's what this is. You're empty and you're trying to fill it with something else. And a lot of times it goes with fear. And I've seen that happen, right? Generationally. That's not a pleasant thing to be in. And when does that stop? Think about that. When does that stop? A lot of times it doesn't until somebody makes it stop. And if no one's willing to make it stop, then it's going to continue. Well, in my mind, it stops now. Okay, for people. You need to understand, right? Live your life. No one is evil, but I think sometimes people get caught up, and I think there's some other factors in play, like mental health or addictions or cognitive whatever, or trauma. I think that happens, and I think people get stuck, and they don't see it, and they end up hurting the people that they swear they love, and that they want them to love them above all else. There's a need there to be filled. Okay? All right. Thank you for watching. Corey Annie, an upload counselor. This was Narcissism and Gaslighting. More narcissism than gaslighting. But more importantly, it's about relationships. And it's about how our view of self and what we need can blind us to damage that people do. Damage what we're doing if we follow those steps and do that. Okay? Just some food for thought on an early morning. And leave some comments. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe, like, share, send it to your friends. This one's a little more of a heavier talk this morning, but it's one that I've been asked about for quite a while. And I thought it was a good time to do it. All right. Thanks for checking out the channel. Thanks for watching the video. Take care of yourselves, and more importantly, let's all just work on being decent people. Okay? World gets a little brighter when we can be a little more kind and a little more decent to each other. And remember the kids, man. Kids are the future. Let's nurture and cultivate that. Let's not stomp it down. We don't need dictators. We need decency. All right. Take care. Have a good one, and we'll talk soon.